Hey everybody, welcome to another great episode of the show. It's your good buddy Spider. Excuse me while I move around here. And welcome once again, like I said, to a great new episode of the show. The weather here in Ohio, because that's where we have to start. It was starting to cool down, it's getting into fall weather, and then today it was real warm. And it's supposed to cool off again later in the week, so I think it's definitely September. As of recording this, it's September 2nd, so you're definitely starting to get that wobble of September weather that you get in Ohio around this time of year. But how are you guys doing? How is everybody doing tonight? I just want to address everybody and announce that we have a new partnership over at Uncanny Media. As you know, we have several affiliates that we work with to help each other promote, to just to give everybody a seat at the table, right? Let everybody have a chance to eat, so to speak. And we're already partners with Cooking Basically, which is a food recipe blog run by a great friend of mine. She's on TikTok, she's on Facebook, she's on various places, she's on Instagram. She doesn't have a YouTube yet, I don't think, but I'm waiting to add that to my various playlists if she does. Lots of great recipes, lots of good stuff. She's really doing well. She's got over 10,000 views on her blog already, and we are very supportive of her. And we recently just picked up, I say picked up as if we acquired them, but we didn't. It wasn't like we purchased them or any kind of, it's not a monetary thing. We partnered with them. I offered them a partnership. We talked out some details, and it's going to be a growing thing. We're going to start out small and go from there. We are now working with Musicians Hangout. And if you have not heard of them, you should. They are from the West Coast, from the Washington State area, Pacific Northwest. And they are the top. They are the best of the best in local music interviews and news and that sort of thing. They interview local musicians, not only just local, but from all across the nation. But they're based in Washington State, in the greater Tacoma, Seattle area. And it's two ladies, Tony and Maxine, and they're fantastic. I've known them for a long time. I've known them since the old Let's Talk About the Music days. And you know what, lawyers? That's a reference. That's not a snide remark. I can say that if I want to, because I was there at the time. Okay? I was there at the time, so I can say the name. I'm not using it to promote my business or to whatever, so you don't need to get yourselves twisted out and be mad. Despite the fact that she doesn't own the copyright on any of it yet anyway. Which is still an ongoing thing, by the way. Here, now that it's September, months after the fact. And, but yeah, Tony and Maxine, I've known them for a long time, ever since those days. And, they're great ladies, they're great people, and they run a great show. Go on YouTube, look up Musicians Hangout. Look up Musicians Hangout. They have a spot now on the affiliates page of uncannymedia.net. And I will be running a playlist of their videos from here on out on my YouTube channel. So you can go to their YouTube channel, or you can go to mine, and it will count towards their views. Right? Fair is fair. And we look forward to a great relationship from here on out. So that's what's going on there. I'll tell you, even more than last week, or last episode really, I don't have a very specific agenda tonight. The episode title, as you may have noticed, is called Learning to Appreciate the Moment. And what does that mean exactly? I was feeling reflective. I've been kind of reflective lately on everything that's been going on, both professionally and out in the world, and all the different things that I have running through my head. And I've probably mentioned this in multiple episodes, but I'm going to say it again. I used to be a brooder. And by that I mean I used to brood. I used to really sit and ruminate and think emotionally over situations that may or may not really have been important. I mean, of course, they seemed important to me at the time. They grabbed some part of my insides and was like, you need to think about this very deeply in a serious sort of way. And it used to be stressful. And I've always said for a long time, since I became aware of the term and since I became aware of my own mentality and was able to examine it in a clinical sort of way, I've always felt like I'm an undiagnosed manic depressive. And I don't say that in a way to try to gain some kind of, like, I don't want people to be sympathetic. I don't want people to be like, oh, well, that explains a few things. I'm not saying that as a, oh, woe was me, because I don't feel depressed, right? And actually, to be honest, I've said this several episodes in a row. I feel the best mentally that I have, mentally and emotionally that I have in, oh gosh, in most of my entire life. I feel great in that regard. Yeah, I'm still stressed about things. I still have to think about different things, and I still get irritated and annoyed and whatever. But I feel good. I feel solid. I feel comfortable, mostly. I feel in control. And I feel more in control than I ever have. And then these things have kind of come and gone. Like there's a big focus right now in the world, and of course I guess it always should be, but there's a big focus on mental health, and some people approach that in the wrong way. Some people, the assumption I think is that everybody in the entire world has some kind of mental issue, and we're all working through something, and we all need various mental health cures or whatever. And I don't think that's true. I think there's a lot of very stable people in the world that just have bad days. I think a lot of people out there don't have any disorders, they don't have any traumas, they don't have, they're just, trying to get by day to day, and they get irritated and they get annoyed and they get upset. And sometimes we jump on that and we say, oh, you know what? Are you having a bad week? You need to take a mental health break. You need to do this. You're displaying the signs of this, and maybe you're autistic, or maybe you're depressed, or maybe you're whatever. When they just need a break. They just need to take a minute to step back and be like, okay, I just need a breather. I'm all right. And then there are other people, like I've always struggled with things in my brain. And it's difficult to categorize. I've said it on, this is another one of those shows where I'm going to repeat myself, probably, but in new and interesting ways, hopefully. I've always said that I'm too smart for my own good. And that is not a brag. That's not a humble brag, like, look how smart I am, I'm so intelligent, ha ha ha. It's I have this level of intelligence in my mind that outpaces some of the other parts of my brain in ways that certain parts move too fast for other things to catch up, and sometimes I'll overthink things to the point where it causes me emotional distress because I'll invent scenarios in my brain of things that aren't going to happen, or didn't happen, or should have happened, or might have happened. And I used to obsess over that kind of thing. I used to just really get down deep into it. Especially in my late teens and into my 20s. I used to just be so consumed with different scenarios of what was and what could have been and what is going to be and what didn't happen, and it just pulled me down into places that I didn't need to be. I'm past that. Nowadays, I do, when I think about things and I think, okay, what's this situation going on? I do consider the various outcomes, but I can look at them more clinically. I can look at them like, well, if this happens, then I'll try to do this. If this happens, I'll try to do that. But I don't become emotionally attached to all the various things, because you don't know what's going to happen until it does. And things that have already happened, they've already happened. You can't go back and change them. You can't fix them. No amount of apologies is going to fix something that you might have done wrong. And if you've done something great, nobody can take that away from you, despite the various cries of counterculture or cancel culture and things that we've got these days. If you're proud of something, then you'll always be proud of it. You don't have to let anybody beat you down about that. And so I would get moments of lows and highs and lows and highs. I was either in the middle with no emotional attachment at all. I was blah most of the time, or I was hyperactive in a certain emotion, usually anger. I was an angry kid, and so usually when I was in a manic phase, I was crazed. I was generally angry about things. I was shooting off the mouth, that kind of thing. Or I was deeply depressed and I was beating myself up about things. And that's why I think for most of my life I was an undiagnosed manic depressive. And maybe I still am, but it matters less now. Because I don't go through those highs and lows anymore. I'm kind of in a little bubble of a little, like, let's talk tools for a minute. A level where you put it on a piece of wood or a piece of whatever to make sure that a house is not leaning or up and down, right? A level. And it's got that bubble in it that you line up on the mark. I feel like I'm that bubble emotionally. And I've got a little bit up and a little bit down. And I can swing up and down. And most of the time I feel pretty chill in the middle. It's less the feeling of I just don't feel much of anything in between, like I used to, and more I'm just kind of like calm, like, okay, I'm just accepting of the things that come around. And it took a long time to get there. It took a long time to get there. I went through a lot of stuff when I was younger. I went through some drug abuse, and it's not something that I bring that up not often, but it is a thing that defined me, and I don't hold it up as, well, if I hadn't done those drugs, I wouldn't be who I am today. No, because I'm not proud of that. I don't think back and feel bad in a way that I'm going to constantly feel guilty about it for my whole life. It's a thing that happened, and it messed me up in various ways. It caused problems in my body. My nerve endings and my fingers are dulled because most of what I took was painkillers, and it gave me some mild nerve damage. I don't feel things in my fingers as strongly as I should based on touch, so it takes a minute for things that are too hot or too cold or whatever to register, which can be dangerous for me. Or if I cut myself, I don't always feel it right off the bat. I sometimes squeeze people too hard. Like the wife sometimes, if I'm giving her a back rub or if I'm just like touching her or something, I'll sometimes like squeeze. And I'll squeeze too hard sometimes without knowing it, and she'll have to tell me, "Ow, that kind of hurts." I'm like, "Oh, I didn't mean to do that," because I can't feel like the nerves aren't as direct, and that's something that I did to myself. And again, none of this is an attempt to garner sympathy or to get people to feel bad, like, "Oh, you had such a horrible life." I'm okay with the things that I've done, and that's not to say that I'm dismissing everything, or that I don't care that maybe they were bad things. I'm just saying that I've accepted who I am. The things happened. I can't change them anymore. What good would it be to just continue to apologize for them for the rest of my life, or make myself feel bad about them for the rest of my life? What am I going to do about it? It's things that happen. So I've learned over the years, especially now, as I'm getting older, to appreciate the moment. And the moment can be any time. It can be just right now, me talking to you, me having this drink that's next to me talking with my family, me listening to my daughter tell me a story about what kind of craft she's working on, because she's a crafty person. She's made paper dragons today. And she built stuff in Minecraft, and she wanted me to see it. And I appreciate these moments. I'm appreciative of things that happen as they happen. Whether they don't have to be a life lesson, they don't have to be anything that's going to change the course of my entire existence. It's a thing that happens, and I appreciate it. And I'm working more to appreciate more of that kind of thing. Because I know over my history I have not always been appreciative of it. I was not, the easiest child to raise from my parents. And so I was not the best student in school. I've not always been the best friend to some of my friends and people. And so I keep my close friends very, very, very on a short list. I have very, very few people who I would consider to be a very close friend. It numbers on one hand, maybe even less than that. So, and then some of that might be my fault, and some of that might just be how it is. I'm very guarded these days. I protect, as they say, as one of the phrases that they say these days, I protect my peace. I'm very protective of my personal self, my privacy, and I don't like to be open with people, not because I'm afraid of being hurt or because I distrust people, but because I think, I don't need everyone in the world to be my friend. I don't need all these people to know my business. I don't need to be on a first name basis with people. I'm very insular, and I don't mind. I talk to people, I do different things, and I've got this show, so you people probably hear a lot more of my inner thoughts nowadays than some people have in the last decade. But I'm comfortable that way. And I appreciate the moments that come my way. And I guess it's made me more discerning. It's made me more selective in certain areas. I don't listen to the radio in general, like FM radio, top 40 hits. I don't find new music on the radio. I'll see new things either through, if YouTube comes up with a name that looks interesting, with a song title that looks interesting, I'll listen to it. And if I like it, I might look up more from the band. If I don't, then I won't. I don't go on streaming services and listen to random things. I listen primarily to MP3s that I've downloaded and I've collected and put on my iPod. And with other entertainment, I used to pre-order like the biggest games that were coming out. Like, oh man, that looks awesome. Sometimes I'd be disappointed, sometimes I wouldn't. And but now I don't. Now I'm very selective in what I choose. I'm very selective in what I choose to play and what I choose to consume as far as entertainment wise. And then here's kind of an update. Like, this ties into that. On YouTube, there's been, well, I guess it started on TikTok, but they brought it on YouTube. The Bigfoot AI vlogs. I talked about them a few episodes ago. I watched a few of them, and some of them were funny, and some of them were kind of like, whatever. Now, almost every one of them you see is ripped off from somebody else. People grab all of the videos of that they can, and they put massive compilations together of the same videos and the same whatever. And some of them aren't good, but they don't care, because they're not trying to be creative with it. They're just trying to get views. They're just trying to slap a bunch of videos that you might be interested in all together into one big compilation, mega hour-long video, and get views. And so I'm a lot more selective in which ones of those I watch anymore. I don't watch much of them as I did when they first came out. It was one of those flash-in-the-pan things. And a lot of people use them as a cover to make racist jokes, which aren't funny. Whatever, they're not funny. Just because it's a couple of Bigfoot saying it doesn't make it any less racist, right? Oh, he can't be racist because it's Bigfoot. He doesn't even exist. Ha ha ha. But you're the person who made the channel, and you're actually the person making the joke. You just made an AI image to cover up for it. So stop being a racist. You know? Movies. I'm very selective with my movies. I've gone to one movie in the theater over the past year, maybe over the past like 3 or 4 years or longer. I've been to one movie since within the last year or two, since before the virus years. And I didn't go too often then either, but I would still go once in a while. And it was to see Alien Romulus, which I was impressed with. I liked it. But I don't go out to see movies. I don't go on streaming services to watch new movies unless I'm really, really interested. Because I don't know. The pacing's all wrong. Movies today, they just don't speak to me. I guess is what it is. They just don't speak to me. I don't watch the latest shows. I don't watch Squid Games or any of that kind of stuff. I'm not interested. I don't care. I have no interest. I tried to watch Sandman for a little while, but I didn't have the time really to dig into it, and it just wasn't the same as the comics. The comics had a certain feel to them, a certain tone, and while the show did okay, it wasn't. I don't know. There was just it wasn't. It was relatively accurate. I mean, it was pretty close, but it wasn't perfect. So, it was better than American Gods, the TV show, which started out okay, then got bad. And then now, Mr. Gaiman is turned out to be kind of a terrible person. Turned out to be a terrible, which is not surprising considering that his wife is a terrible person. And I don't. People are gonna be like, "That's slander, and you shouldn't say that. They're great people." Well, no, I had a personal interaction with Neil Gaiman's wife, Amanda Palmer. Okay, I had a personal interaction online, a direct conversation. So I have experience, and it wasn't just something that offended me. It was something that she had. She was very callous. She was very dismissive. And it was clear she was out to make money. Which is fine if that's what you're out for, but don't pretend that you're an artist trying to make art for the sake of art and that you stand for all these causes if you're just trying to make money. Right? So I don't watch much TV anymore. I have been, as you know, I have been watching the pro wrestling stuff. I've been watching WWE content for quite a while now, for the last year or so, and most of the time that's pretty good, and sometimes it's kind of boring, but it's very mild, it's very kind of like, it's stuff I can watch, and I'm invested in some of the stories, despite, I know it's all made up, I know it's all planned out, and I know it's all choreographed, but it's still entertaining to me. So, you like what you like. You like what you like. If you like Rick and Morty, you can like that, despite the fact that I think it's crap. And that's fine, because you can like it. I'm not going to tell you not to like it. I just think it's crap. And I like to watch pro wrestling, and you can tell me that's crap. And whatever. I'm still going to enjoy it, and you don't have to. That's how we get along. Not having to care about who likes what. Right? So that's that. So what else do I have going on? Let's get out of this little funk of a topic. What else do we have going on in the wide world? I mentioned that I was going to start playing Dragon Age the Veilguard because it was coming to Game Pass, to Xbox Game Pass. And so it was going to be free to play. Now, it's not exactly on Game Pass. It's on EA Play, Electronic Arts Play, which is their subscription service like Game Pass, where you pay a monthly fee and you can play a selection of their games for free, right? But EA Play is absorbed into Game Pass. If you have Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, then you get EA Play for free. So it's technically the same thing. But, details. And I said in the past episode that once it came to Game Pass, I was going to give it a try. And now it's on. It came out August 28th to Game Pass. And if you remember several episodes ago, let me see if it's even on my list still. I have a list of things. It was before episode 16 at least. It's been a while. It's more than 10, 12 episodes ago. I talked about how it had come out and what the controversies were about it and how I was reluctant to buy it because I wasn't sure. So now that I've been playing it since the 28th when it dropped on Game Pass. And I have to say, as far as playability-wise, it is not a bad game. It's like a lot of other BioWare games. BioWare is the developer of Dragon Age. They developed that. They developed the Mass Effect franchise. A few other things. But it's not a horrible game to play. It has a lot of the same things that their last game did, Inquisition, Dragon Age Inquisition. The combat is a lot more dumbed down even than that. It's slowly been getting less and less RPG, choose your action combat, and more hack and slash with every game to make it simple for people, which is both good and bad. When Skyrim's new combat system came out after Morrowind and Oblivion, people were kind of like, oh, it feels so easy and whatever, it's so simple. Yeah, because they're trying to appeal to the largest audience. And while that's not always the best thing that a company can do, because the majority is not always right, as we know, I don't find it to be too much of a problem in this game. I think it's alright. The environments the environments feel a lot like World of Warcraft, which is a game that I've never played, but I've seen a lot of video about it, so I can look at the aesthetic. I can look at the backgrounds and things. It looks like a more realistically styled World of Warcraft with the color palettes and the locations. It looks less like Dragon Age that I knew, where things were kind of dark and dreary, and maybe that's just an evolution of the way the game is supposed to go with the new technology we have. But some of the enemies look kind of cartoony. I don't know. It's a little off. It's not off enough that I'm not enjoying it. But it's off enough in a way that it doesn't necessarily feel like a Dragon Age game. But it's okay. I'll accept it as part of the canon. Right? Not that I have any authority in the matter anyway. I mean, it is what it is, but personally in how I view these things. The dialogue, a lot of it is written badly, and a lot of it is acted poorly. And to be honest, that's never necessarily been one of BioWare's strengths. They've always kind of hired voice actors that were talented, but sometimes felt maybe a little bit too Shakespearean, if you get what I mean. The role was a bit more dramatic than it needed to be, whereas some parts are really overly dramatic and other parts are really way too understated, like blah, like very blasé, kind of, right? So there's not a lot of middle ground. It's either really over the top or really casually understated in a strange 2020s kind of way, if you get my meaning. But I can overlook that. The quests are okay. So far, most of the story, it makes sense. It rewrites a lot of the history from the last 3 games, though. They took this opportunity to solve a bunch of mysteries from the first 3 games as far as lore and history, and the history of the world, and the history of the gods, and this and that. And I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, even though the game's been out for a while. If anybody has been waiting to play it until it was on Game Pass, I don't want to spoil it for you. But they did rewrite a lot of the history, and they gave in-game reasons for it. Like, the characters don't say things like, oh, well, this rewrites everything we knew about the past of this and that, and all of the things we thought we knew are wrong. Oh my gosh, our religions and our values are shaken to the core. You know, it's things like that. So they acknowledge it in the game. But it might be something that irritates people who are used to a certain continuity from the Dragon Age games. I don't see it as a huge problem. I think it's interesting. Some of it kind of goes right up my alley because, mild tangent, I believe a lot of the big religious stuff, like a lot of the Christian histories that are from, like, Old Testament and the old Jewish stuff from the Talmud, and some of the Muslim stuff from the past, from the most distant past, I don't feel like a lot of those things were particularly divine in nature. I think there were great people of stature that existed throughout the history, and various stories were told of them, and then those stories were eventually turned into myths and legends and became sacred writing. Now, I know some people are going to be upset about that, and I get it, but I'm a person who's done a lot of studies into ancient Mesopotamia. I've read a lot of books and a lot of peer-reviewed articles on ancient Sumer and Akkad and pre-Babylonian civilization in that part of the world. And so I've developed some theories based on all that. But so it's a little bit like that. I can kind of appreciate what they were going for with this in the Veilguard. trying to go back and say, oh, well, this big event that happened, it was actually this, and now we know the truth. Oh my gosh. I can look at that as alright, because that jives with some of my views on history versus mythology, versus divinity versus legend. And so let's get to the trouble characters. Oh, let's get into some troublesome. I don't mean troublesome in a way that this is going to be a tricky segment, and I don't want to be taken out of context about this, because I've talked before about how gender ideology and all that it's not a subject I'm interested in, and I don't pay it much thought, because I don't go out of my way to try to identify people. And so if you want to be different than what you are, whatever. If you feel like you've always been different from what you are, and what you are isn't what you are, fine, whatever, you do you. So I don't worry about people's pronouns, and I don't want to sound like I'm just being dismissive, but I don't think it's really not that important, folks. You are you. You're not she, he, they, them, whatever. You're you. And I'll address you as who you are. I'm not going to get hung up on whether you're he, she, thee, they, them, whatever. I don't get hung up on that. It's not important to me. If it's important to you, I don't understand. And there's not much you can do to help me understand, because it doesn't make sense to me. But I'm also not going to go out of my way to be offensive to you and say, like, if you choose to be a she when you used to be a he, and I'm not going to call you a he on purpose to insult you, or vice versa, or whatever. I'm not going to go out of my way to antagonize you about it. Alright? That's just how it is. I'll do my best to address you the way you want to, but it's never going to be perfect. If you resemble one over the other, my brain has always been, because I grew up that way, that people are this or people are that. And to avoid most of those conundrums, I usually avoid using pronouns altogether. I don't use them most of the time. I just say, hey you, hey person, hey dude. And dude is gender neutral, in my opinion, in how I use it. As I've said before, one of my best friends from Cleveland, I call her dude all the time. She's a dude. She's my dude. She's fully female. She's who she is, but she's dude. People are that. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, so anyway, let's not get hung up about that. But let's talk about now. In Veilguard, of course, when you first start the game and you're setting up your character, you have the option of giving them pronouns and what you prefer, assigning them a gender, and they don't have to match what your pronouns are. You can make them different, and then you can give them different body types, and you can muddle it all up. And if that's what you want to do, fine, whatever. It's not up to me. I don't find that to be a problem. I know a lot of people did when the game came out, because they felt like, oh, you're forcing pronoun ideology on us. But honestly, if you want to play a male character, just pick all the male options. If you want to pick a female character, just pick all the female options. It's not that hard. If you want to play a mixture of the two, or one that's neither, there's options for that. It's not that hard. You don't have to get hung up about it. You don't have to be personally offended, because you have the choice. You're not going to say, okay, well, I'm going to pick this character. And then the game is automatically going to say, well, that character is a she, and they have male gender, and they are whatever. And it's not going to do that to you. You're not being forced. You're not being pushed into a corner to go what you believe is to respect an ideology, quote-unquote. You have your choices. If you want to be male, pick male. If you want to be female, you pick female. If you want to be neither, pick neither. If you want to be both, pick both. It's that simple. It's not hard. You don't have to get upset about it. So that's that. Now, in the game, there's a weird thing that happened that I noticed. And I found myself, at first, I was kind of like, that's strange. But then it was extra strange because, and we'll get to that in a second, why it's extra strange. Because initially, it's not offensive. It's not offensive the other way either, but it's just, the game is kind of holding your hand and leading you towards something in order to slap that hand. And that's disingenuous. But let's get into the why. Or the how, rather. When you talk to various NPCs, when you talk to various NPCs outside of your party, and even sometimes within the party, people will say, oh yeah, we lost one of our scouts, it's Jim, they went to wherever. Now, I know some people are going to be like, oh, I'm triggered. It's a they, when clearly they said his name was Jim. It should be he went. Don't worry about it. I don't care. But they use it for everybody. They use it for every single character, almost, to a point where you're kind of like, okay, I know you're trying to get away from the assumption of gender. I get it. I get it. It's a little heavy-handed, but I get it. But then we get to Tosh. Tosh is a character that you add to your party of heroes. You get a party of heroes that you collect throughout the game that you can switch out to go to fight for you and to do different things with you, right? Tosh is a person who struggles with gender ideas. Okay? In the game. If you talk to them, they're very combative about it, and they're very, they don't like to be labeled, and I get it. When you're first introduced to Tosh, though, everybody makes a concerted effort to say she. Right? Everybody says, she does this and she does that. It's never, at least where I'm at in the game so far, it's never they, as they do with a lot of the other NPCs. So you're being conditioned by the game to look at Tosh initially as she, as a female. You're subtly being told to make the assumption in a way that your brain kind of is like, okay, it's she, whatever. You automatically do it, right? You don't think about it. And then it introduces a subplot where her mother, or their mother, in the game, keeps saying, you act more like a man than whatever, and why do you want to be such like a man, like the man, and blah, 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 blah. And that's a pointed thing. And then later Tosh starts getting into conversations with other party members about, sometimes I feel like this and sometimes I feel like that. Sometimes I don't feel like either one. And so the game wants you to feel guilty for making the she assumption. Despite the fact that it addressed Tosh as she multiple times to get that into your brain so that you would assume it's a she. The game then turns around and says it chastises you for thinking that way. And there's a quest that I'm probably not going to do because I think this is heavy-handed. It's not because I have anything against anybody with their gender, okay? I know people are going to assume anyway, and they're going to say that I'm a bigot, and it's not true. But people are going to assume it, and there's nothing I can do, I suppose, to change your mind. But hear me out. There's a quest line, because each character has their own personal quest line that you can pursue to make them more loyal to you or more friendly, or even if you want to make them a romantic partner, then you have to do these various friendship quests to lead that direction. And one of the parts of the Tosh quest line is you have dinner with them and their mother, and Tosh comes out and says, well, I'm non-binary, and has to explain it to their mother, who doesn't understand because she's a traditionalist and whatever. And it's very heavy-handed. It's very awkward. It's very... And I know some people are going to come back, well, sometimes hard conversations are awkward, and you need to face that. Sure, but this is in a way that's really forced. This is in a way, especially considering, again, now it wouldn't be so off-putting if the game didn't initially introduce the character via the other people in the game as she. Right? It conditions you to make the wrong assumption about the character, specifically to turn around later and smack you about it and tell you that you were wrong for thinking that. And I don't think that's fair. Because it makes the assumption that you would assume that the characters are a certain way. Who's to say? Who's to say I would have met Tosh and instantly assumed, oh, well, obviously she is a woman. And I know people do that every day because that's how society has been. We see certain features on a person and we assume, oh, that's a female, that's a male, whatever. They have this kind of voice, that's a female. They have that kind of voice, that's a male. I know we're conditioned for that. And I'm sure the game thought that it was being clever in trying to directly attack that line of thought. But it feels really awkward and disingenuous. It's borderline insulting, in a way. And, I'm not personally offended by it. I get it. And I'm not going to be upset about it. And I'm not going to say, they should have taken that out of the game. This is horrible. And Tasha's a terrible character. And blah, blah, blah. I think they could have done it differently. And done it better. In a way that made more sense. That flowed with the story. That flowed with... That... I don't know. They could have done a better job of the presentation rather than leading you on by the hand and then slapping your hand once you got to the destination. And in a sort of tangent moment, I felt the same way about there's a Perfect Circle album. Okay, and generally I'm a huge Perfect Circle fan. I've loved almost everything that they've done. They put out an album called Eat the Elephant. And the elephant it stood for two things. It stood for the elephant in the room, which is addressing a big issue that people are ignoring when they should be paying attention to, which was an allusion to, at the time, President Trump. And it was also, the elephant stood for the Republican Party in general, because that's the elephant versus the donkey, which is the Democrats. So and while that didn't seem overly, on the nose at first, most of the album was really kind of preachy in a way that I felt like, and again, as I've said this before, I did not vote for Trump. I didn't vote for Biden or for Kamala. I didn't vote for Trump. Okay, I'm not a MAGA guy. I'm not a quote-unquote lefty. I'm pretty firmly in the middle on a lot of things. But while I listened to that album, I felt like I was being scolded for not having the right thoughts about different things, for not having the right opinions, for not having a strong enough indignance, I guess. A lot of the lyrics were so literally, they were just so direct in ways, not direct in a way that's trying to be like, all right, get up and do this thing. very condescending. And it was insulting. It was... And I didn't go out and complain in a way like, I'm never going to listen to a Perfect Circle again. Those guys are just... I didn't do that, and I didn't go picket, and I didn't go protest, and I didn't go on the internet and make a big deal out of it, because who cares? It's just whatever. I felt kind of like I was being yelled at, despite the fact that I had done nothing wrong. Because I hadn't done what they thought I should have done right. And that's how I feel with the Tosh interactions in Dragon Age the Veilguard. I feel like I'm being told that I'm thinking the wrong way, regardless of how I felt leading up to it, whether I felt a certain way or not. And I know there's going to be some people who are going to be like, well, if you feel that way, it means you were already a bigot and the game pegged you for what you are. And I have to disagree with you. I'm not. I'm not a bigot. And then there's, again, if you have to defend it, then obviously you are. The more you defend it, the more you are. If you smelt it, you dealt it. Ha ha ha. Elementary school humor we have here. That's the logic. The logic of children. If you don't speak out against something, then obviously you support it. Right? It's all that evil needs is for good men to do nothing. And if you're not doing anything, then obviously you're into evil. And all of that is bullshit. To be perfectly blunt. It's all bullshit. It takes what a person believes and undermines it. It's always us against them kind of situations, and I don't do that. I don't do the us against them, the me against you. I judge people individually, on an individual basis. And I've said this many times on this podcast, that if you're an asshole, I'm not going to like you, and I'm going to talk badly about you, because you're an asshole. If you're not, then I'm not going to care. If we disagree and you're not an asshole, then I don't care. We can disagree. I even respect your disagreement. Just because I don't agree with you doesn't mean that I hate you, doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It just means we don't see eye to eye. If you're an asshole about it and you insult me and you try to belittle me about it, tell me that I'm the worst in the world, then I'm against you. I'm automatically against you. Because you're an asshole, not because of how you look at things or how you believe, but because you are an asshole about it. Have they said asshole enough times? That's my philosophy. But all in all, and I haven't completed the game yet. So I don't know if there's anything more than that's going on. So far, that's the only minor issues I have. And I say minor because, again, it's not something I feel like I need to get up in arms about and complain strenuously about and petition BioWare to change their ways and whatnot. Yeah, I'm talking about it on the podcast here, but that's just me talking about it. It's not really a big deal. And we should be able to talk about things. We should be able to talk about all kinds of things. And I'm going to complete the game. I'm going to complete the game, and we're going to see how everything goes from here. But I am, all things being fair, I am enjoying the game itself. It is not that bad. If you don't like some of the story stuff, don't play those quests. If you don't like the Tosh storyline, don't play it. If you don't like the pronoun stuff and character creation, ignore it. Just build your character. Whatever. Don't get hung up about it. The game is okay. Would I have paid full price about it, knowing what I know now about how the game plays? No, because for one thing, games are expensive these days. Even for games that I'm really into, I usually wait for a sale anymore. I don't like paying full price for games because they're like $80, $90 anymore. I don't have that kind of change just lying around for new games every month. But I'll probably buy the game at some point, so that if it ever comes off of Game Pass or EA Play, then I can still play it afterwards, because I think it's worth playing. I'll probably make more than one character, which shows that I'm invested in the game itself. As long as by the end of the game it doesn't do something to really shoot itself in the foot as far as the overall story, because some games will do that. Sometimes you'll get all the way to the end and then it'll do something that's just, oh, why did they do that? That sucks. That's a terrible ending. Like Far Cry 5. Far Cry 5. Oh. I had a lot of problems with that game. I played through that game. I got to the end. The preacher guy fires off the nukes, and you have to run and you have to get to a bunker. And in the end, the bad guy, and he's not even a cool bad guy, he's a jerk bad guy. He's a guy who murdered his own child right after they were born. He's a horrible, horrible person from a moral standpoint. Not like a classical villain, just a morally reprehensible person. He lives at the end of the game, and he gets away with it, and then the world ends, and then the next game afterwards, he's still alive in a position of power, and he still gets through all of that, and he never gets what he deserves. Far Cry 5, and then Far Cry New Dawn. I've never played New Dawn because I was so disgusted after Far Cry 5's ending. I was so disgusted. Oh, because the game itself was fun up until that point. Oh, just what a terrible ending. I'm gonna hate it for the rest of my life. What a terrible ending. So as long as this one doesn't have something like that at the end, I'll probably play it more than once with multiple characters to make different choices and different decisions. Okay? But so that's Dragon Age of Veilguard. That's all the issues I have and all the positives I have. And to be honest, it's worth playing. I will say that. I will say it's worth playing. Did it honestly deserve all of the hate that it got when it first came out? I don't think so. I think a lot of these things about the gender stuff and all that got blown way out of proportion. Because you don't really have to... You don't have to really go along with any of that if you really don't want to. If you're really stubborn, you can ignore all of it and not have any part of it. But I think the game as a whole was worth playing. Is it worth $70, $80? No, because it doesn't do anything particularly new. And the dialogue is iffy, and the story is kind of iffy. But it's on sale right now in the Xbox Game Store for half price. So, and you can play it for free through EA Play and Game Pass anyway, if you don't want to pay for it. So it's worth playing. It's worth playing if you are a fan of BioWare games or the Dragon Age franchise in general. It does mess up some things from Inquisition that I was kind of into. And Inquisition is the better game out of the two, to be honest. The two better games of the series are the first one and Inquisition. And followed by Dragon Age 2, which has its own problems. And then, I don't know about this one. I won't rank it yet because I'm not done with it yet. It might score higher than 2, which would be pretty good, I think. But it's going to be behind both Origins and Inquisition. Those two games are the top of the series. Would I pick one out of the two of those? They're both different. And there's an age gap between the two. So I can't really say one is better than the other, I don't think. But they're both at the top. And then we'll see where 2 and Veilguard rank once I finish Veilguard. So that's it. that's all I've got for you. It was a good show. I got a lot of opinions out there. And once again, appreciate the moment. Appreciate the moment. Whatever moment it is, appreciate it as it's coming along. I'm getting older. I don't know exactly how many moments I'll have left. Hopefully I've got quite a few. I'm sure I've still got at least 30, 40 years to go. You never know. But appreciate the moment. And try not to stress about it. It's alright. Yeah, there's things that are crappy in the world. But look at what you've got in your life that's good. And enjoy it. Enjoy what you got. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to finish my drink. I'm going to play some more games, eat some more food. And I'm going to go to bed. And I hope you folks have a good night. And I'll see you folks next time.